Hi, friend. I'm Susie. This is Leaders with Leverage. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. I really mean that. I talk a lot about feedback in a lot that I do, and I always laugh. I've had a few executive leaders who have said, "Can you come in and teach my team how to take feedback?" And I'm like, "Oh, it starts at the top. It really does start at the top." But I'm not taking it that route. I'm taking it a more like off the beaten path. And this came to mind for me. I was talking to a friend of mine who is an entrepreneur, and he runs a business. And he was talking about somebody in his network that a lot of people know and respect, who talks a big game, talks about helping out others, and has a reputation for not doing as they say. They're all talk about helping one another, and they kind of preach it, but yet when it comes down to it, everybody's compared notes, and the person just follows through on none of it. None of it. And everybody knows it. It's become kind of this joke, and it's actually gone on for a long time. And we were talking about his responsibility in articulating to that person about this perception of them. And I was feeling really nervous for him. And also, part of me was like, is it really your responsibility? It's really their fault. And I had to catch myself. And I'm definitely in a unique position because people hire me to help them see different perspectives. So I kind of feel like I have license to tell people what I think they need to hear. So I'll have pretty difficult conversations with people if I notice things, because people are always who they are. So if I observe something when I observe them in front of their team, or I watch them in a meeting, or even if I'm talking to them and they're describing a scenario, sometimes I can say, "Oh, has anybody ever told you that you sound a little harsh?" Or, "Is that really what are the words you use to do that?" And sometimes we keep inside of us the feedback that we have for others because we don't feel like it's ours to share. So I wanted first of all, think about you as a leader and what are some of the opportunities beyond the obvious feedback categories that you could be providing to your people. And then secondly, what do you do when you observe something, and why should you give feedback to somebody that you aren't officially responsible for? That's the thing. We feel like our feedback is, even some of us have a hard time giving feedback, but that our feedback is really for the people that report into us. And those boundaries are very loose. And I would say the higher you get up in the organization, especially, that feedback that you give to your peers. Oh, I say that and I could feel people kind of cringe. Or your boss is your responsibility because it might be impeding the business results. So the earlier you start and getting comfortable with that, the better. So I'm going to give you some things to think about, to consider here. So let's first talk about your people. And I want to give you three things. It's always great to do things in threes. Three things to think about are you giving this kind of feedback to your people? One is strategic direction. Are you giving them insights and observations that will help them really grow professionally? Are you thinking about the feedback, not just what they need to do in their role, but what they need to do to sharpen that skill? Are you thoughtful about where they're going, even not just in the role, but where they want to go professionally? Have you even asked? So when you think about giving feedback to people, it's not just in reaction to a situation, it's also, especially for the people that work for you, how do you get them to continue to be thinking forward in the future? Because sometimes they get caught in the moment and the busyness and the challenge of what they're doing in the day to day. The second is, we as leaders sometimes think about people as individuals. Do you spend time thinking about the team dynamics and how that's working? What are those relationships? How can you help foster some great unity Where is there a lack of trust? Can you help bridge that without being obvious? Can you give them constructive ways to help them build the network they need to internally? So thinking about them singularly is great, but when you think about them as a collective, there are some other areas of feedback that you can give them. So thinking about team dynamics is the second. And then just thinking about where they would like you to help them. What are the things that, and it's just asking, what do you see about what I'm doing that you've observed that you want to get better at? What are the ways that I can provide you insight? What can I watch that you want some insight on? We often are the ones that decide where we need to be to observe what people need us to see or what we believe, but we don't give them the opportunity to say, hey, I would love you to come to my team, or I'm going to record my team meeting and I'd love to get your feedback. You know what that does? If somebody on your team asks you that, that means they have a really deep trust for you. What a great thing. So embrace that opportunity and not look it down. So the three are thinking about the strategic direction, the team dynamics, thinking about how are they relating to the people, others, their influence internally, how can you help them tighten those relationships or increase trust? And then what can you do? What is it about you that they need from you? Have them ask you how to help them get better. And then when you think about those other areas, those other people, start observing what's going on around you. How are people perceived? Instead of talking kind of behind the back of somebody else or thinking, oh, there goes Dan again. He just goes on and on and on and on. And maybe you see other people eye roll. Instead of just being a silent observer, maybe it's time for you to say something to them and give them that feedback. And I mean, it's a political move. It can be a political move because you're stepping outside maybe how they believe what relationship you have or authority you have to give them feedback. But it also might really be a great experience for you because it's not easy. And also, it can build that trust. If they really understand that it comes from a place that you want to make them better, then that will, oh man, talk about having a trusted ally. If that they know you have their back because you've taken the time to come to them. So how can you do this? What are some of the keys to giving feedback when you know you should, but it's not very comfortable, or it's something that you've observed that you think would be really helpful to the other person? Pick your moment. Make sure that you think about the timing of it, and be ready to have data around it and really sound examples that are not emotional to you. When you're ready to do it, ask if the person's open. And if they are, ask them if now is a good time. And then make sure you frame it as a perspective and not a critique. And make sure they understand that. And don't do it from the perspective, your perspective, and say, hey, I observed this and this is what I took from it. Is that accurate? Is that what you were trying to do? And when you do it like that, you're not saying you did this and this is the result. And it fosters openness and more receptive on their side. And then just be ready that what you assumed might not be right. So allow them to come back and go, oh, that's not exactly why. And then just be really open to, okay, that's great. And say, in the future, when I see things, do you want feedback like this? Is this helpful to you? I would really love us to have this both ways. Be ready for it coming back at you, because this is opening up a whole new relationship, but this could be really key. So thinking about feedback outside of how we normally frame it for ourselves. For the people that work for us, thinking about them strategically, having them, how can you help them, team dynamics, thinking about not just one person, but the holistic, what they need to do to expand their network. And then opening up yourself for the feedback they need to give. And then when you look outside to the left and above, meaning the side, your peers, or above to your boss, ask them if they're open for feedback. Make sure it's the right time. Make sure that you choose the moments. Frame it as a perspective, not a critique. And be open to their adjusted view of it and keep it as an open dialogue. Feedback is a very murky world. It's not black and white. Just because it's on a piece of paper doesn't mean it's easy. And it is definitely a work in progress. How to give it, because we're all different humans. Every situation's different and we're always shifting every day. Everybody is, every situation. So when you think about it like that, giving feedback in a way that is helping the other person develop and being a good steward of that information while being a good partner for them. I hope this was helpful. I am so grateful for the insights I get from people around me that give me great content to talk about here, because I know that if people are talking to me about it, it's something that a lot of people need to consider. I'd love to hear what you think about this. How do you look at feedback? How do you frame it for yourself? How do you do it for your team, your peers, and your boss? I'd love your tips. I'll talk about them as well. Thanks for being here. I'm Susie, and I appreciate you.